Hey friends, welcome to the August 2024 edition of Reset and Restore. Today we're going to go ahead and get started on our backs. If you want to grab any props to practice with, now is a great time to do that. I'll be propping with a blanket and 2 blocks, so feel free to grab those or any other props that you'd like to have to support your practice today. So let's make our way down onto our backs in whatever way feels supportive and comfortable for you. And then once you're here, just kind of take a moment to settle in and find a position that feels comfortable for you. Maybe knees bent, maybe feet wide with the knees falling together. That can take some pressure off the low back. If it feels better for you to extend the legs long, please feel free to do so. Resting the hands somewhere comfortable, and then gently allowing the eyes to close. And then beginning to slow down the breath here. Taking these opening moments of our practice together to really settle with the breath and get into the body. Feeling the chest and belly as they expand with each inhale and contract with each exhale. Feeling the weight of your body on the floor, fully supported right here. Melting a little bit into the mat with each exhale. Sending that breath deep into the belly. As you slow the breath down even a little more. Shifting the mind, the body, the nervous system into a state of relaxation and safety as we prepare to enter our practice together. And if you'd like to take a moment to set an intention for your practice today, I invite you to do so. Maybe the intention to be here now. Nice. Taking a couple more deep breaths here. Letting them go. And then as you're ready, we'll begin to awaken through fingers and toes and then blink the eyes open. Let's start by just taking a nice long stretch on our mat, finding some space in the body, reaching above the head with the fingers and down below with the toes. And then let's draw those knees in towards the chest, grasping underneath the knees with the hands, and then drawing those knees in a little bit further. If the knees feel awfully far away or like you need a little bit more space for your hips or your abdomen, feel free to keep the knees a little bit further. You could also use a strap or a scarf here if the knees are feeling particularly far away from you. And then maybe just rocking side to side a little bit, finding a bit of compression in the abdomen, massaging the intestines. And from here, let's keep that right knee tucked in toward our belly and extend the left leg long on the mat. You might even think about drawing that right knee sort of outside the torso to make a little bit more room for the belly as you draw it up towards your armpit. Continuing to massage those internal organs, warming up the hip joint, the knee joint. You might even take a few circles with the ankle one way and then the other. Maybe some tiny circles with the hip one way and then the other. Just warming things up here. And then we'll draw that left knee back in toward the belly, hug it in, maybe take a couple rocks side to side here. And then we'll extend that right leg long on the mat, bringing the left knee up toward the shoulder, maybe Bringing it a bit outside the torso, making some room for that belly. Noticing how this side feels. It might feel quite different from the first side. Maybe taking a few ankle circles, one way and then the other. Maybe doing a few nice little circles with the knee, continuing to warm up that hip joint, the knee joint. And then one more time, drawing both knees in towards the chest and giving yourself a nice big hug here. You might even bring the forehead up toward the knees and curl into a little ball. And then from here, let's stretch long on the mat one more time, stretching the arms above the head, reaching those toes away from you. And then from here, let's walk the feet just a little bit over toward the left side. Well, you can do either side, whatever you choose. This might feel good right here. You might also consider reaching the arms, the hands, over a little bit to the left side, starting to feel a little bit more opening through the right side of the body. And if you'd like to find a little bit more sensation there, you could take the left or the right foot and cross it over the left foot. So you're just getting a little bit more into that outer hip sort of torso area here through all those intercostal muscles on the ribs. And then once you're in position, let's relax the effort and just let the body sort of relax into this posture, letting the opening happen all on its own. Finding a little bit of rest here. Finding again that deep breath, sending the breath deep into the belly. And as we practice this posture and all of the rest of our postures, staying connected with that breath, because the breath can be such a wise guide in our practice. If you notice that you're having a hard time breathing, your breath is becoming rapid, you're holding your breath, these are all signs that maybe we're putting a little bit too much of the effort in to the practice at that moment. And maybe it's time to find a little bit more ease. So if that does happen for you, please back out of the posture until you can find that slow, deep breath again. The slow, deep breathing as we stretch our bodies helps us to really soothe the nervous system and feel safe in our practice, which is so important. Nice. So we'll release this. We'll come back through center and just reach long above, long below. And then we'll take that on the second side. So whichever side you did not do the first time, let's walk those feet over to that side just a little bit, sort of over to the edge of our mat here, keeping those arms long above us. You might notice that this feels different on the second side. Maybe it's already more intense or less intense. If you'd like to bring the arms along with you for this banana pose, as we sort of create this banana shape on the floor, feel free to do so. And then if you'd like to cross the left ankle over the right ankle, finding a little more opening through that side body. Again, feel free to do so. Make this your practice. Make this work for your body as it is today. One of my favorite things about practicing yoga at home in the comfort and sort of anonymity of my own space is that I don't feel the same pressure to perform my yoga practice as I do when I'm practicing in front of other people, like in a studio. Sometimes that environment can feel very competitive. And instead of feeling like I need to perform my yoga practice, I can really practice. I can really connect with my breath, my body, the intention that I bring to my practice. And so for me, I find this to be the most comforting environment to perform my practice in, just for myself. Staying connected with that slow and deep breath. Maybe you're noticing that the left side is feeling particularly sticky. You might imagine that you could send your breath into any sticky spots you're encountering. Okay, and we'll unwind here. And this time, let's just spread our legs wide on the mat, reach our arms wide, find a little bit of a star pose here. Reaching arms long, reaching toes long. And then drawing those knees in toward the chest, giving it a little rock back and forth. Nice. And from here, we'll make our way onto all fours. So especially if you have a tender back, I really encourage you to roll over to one side and then use the strength of your arms to push you up before you come into that all fours position. I'm going to take my blanket with me here just to cushion my knees. So whatever you need to do to set up and feel comfortable, I encourage you to do so. And from here, we're going to find ourselves on all fours, hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. You might need to step those hands a little bit forward so that you can find the right sort of length for the body. And then engaging the core, sort of tucking that belly button in towards the spine, drawing the top of the head long away from the tailbone, finding length in the spine here. And then we'll go through a few rounds of cat-cow. So first, taking a nice big inhale, dropping the belly and looking up for our cow pose. And then exhaling, tucking the tail, tucking the chin, arching the spine, doming up between the shoulder blades for cat. Inhaling, dropping the belly, looking up for cow. Exhaling, tucking tail, tucking chin, doming up between the shoulder blades. And let's move through that 3 more times on our own pace, our own breath cycle. Taking it nice and slow. Articulating the spine as we flex and extend. Keeping that deep, slow breath. Nice. And once you're done, we'll come back to center. And then let's step our right toes out behind us, and then pick the toes up and cross them behind or on the other side of the left ankle. This helps us, again, get into that sort of outer hip area. This might be plenty for you, or you might like to turn to look over your shoulder, looking for those toes, whether or not you see them. Just add a little bit more opening through the side body. Breathing here. Nice. And then we'll come back through center. Come back to all fours. Take a moment, take a breath. And then let's step those left toes back this time. And then pick them up and cross them outside of the right ankle. This might be good for you. You might like to continue deepening that side stretch by looking over your right shoulder and searching for those left toes, whether or not you find them. Really breathing into the side body here. Nice. And then we'll come back through center. Replace that knee beneath the hip. Find our all fours position again, our tabletop. And from here, let's take the right hand and slide it behind the left wrist as we bring our right shoulder, and our right temple to or towards the floor, opening up behind the shoulder blade here. And if you want a little more opening, you can sort of lean over to the right side, leaning away from that hand to continue opening up beneath the shoulder blade. And then again, thinking about sending the breath toward any part of the body that's feeling sticky or stiff. The breath carries that fresh oxygen. In the yogic tradition, helps us to infuse more fresh prana, more of that vital life force energy right into our bodies. So imagining that we could send that oxygen, that prana right into the sticky sore spots in our bodies. And then preparing to move out of that posture, slowly coming back to our tabletop position. And we'll prepare to do that on the second side as well. So with our left hand, threading that behind the right wrist as we bring the left shoulder, left temple down toward the mat. You might like to reach that right arm out in front of you. This might be plenty. If you want a little more sensation in that shoulder, you can always lean a little bit to the left away from your threaded hand. And then again, reconnecting with that breath. Going nice and deep. Taking one last breath here. And then gently moving out of the posture, coming back into our tabletop position. And from here, I'm going to bring my blocks up to the top of my mat. If you want to practice with blocks, bring the floor a little bit higher up to meet you. Feel free to do so. And from here, let's step our left foot up toward the top of the mat. You can always grab that ankle and give yourself a little help getting up there. Yeah. So whatever works for you. And then once you get here, let's find ourselves in a nice low lunge position with our back knee on the mat. You might need to scoot that back knee back just a bit. And then from here, we're going to just bend and straighten that front knee a few times. I'm going to use my blocks to help make a little bit more space for my posture here. And then once we feel like that knee is nice and lubricated, let's come into our lunge, reconnect with that slow, deep breath. Letting the hips be heavy forward. We always want the knee to stay above the ankle. We don't want it to be extending past the toes, just to protect our knees. We only get one body after all, and it is the only home we will have throughout our entire lives for most of us. So just taking care in our practice to protect these vulnerable parts of our bodies, our knees, and the other joints. Nice. And from here, we're just going to sit our hips back. You might like to point the toes up toward the sky, up toward the ceiling. And we're opening up now through the hamstring in this half split. You can see I brought my blocks with me. It's just how my body is feeling today. I always notice a pretty significant difference between my two sides, especially right now while I have a little bit of a hip thing going on. It's just so interesting to investigate the experience of the body as we move through our practice. Nice. And we'll release that. We'll come back into our low lunge, taking a moment to reset and feel comfortable in that lunge. And then let's plant the right hand and reach the left fingertips up towards the sky here. Cool. And we'll release that. And we'll step the left foot back, coming back into that all fours position. Take a breath here. And then we'll step the right foot forward, maybe helping yourself out with a little assist if you need it. And then here we'll bend and straighten that front knee a few times. Lubricating that knee joint until we feel that we're in a nice, comfortable spot. And now we'll let the hips become heavy and come into our low lunge on the second side. Sending that breath deep into the hips, or at least imagining that we could do so. And then sitting the hips back. Pointing those toes, getting into our half split on side number 2. Keeping it slow today. It's warm enough outside. We don't need to build any heat here. All right, and then we'll come back forward into our low lunge. Plant that left hand and reach the right fingertips up towards the sky. Nice. And then we'll briefly come back through our tabletop position. From here, I'm just going to turn my body so I can demonstrate more effectively, but you can stay right where you are. So here we're in our all fours position. And what we'll do is we'll step our right foot out beside us, but keep that left knee beneath us. And then just sort of rock back and forth a little bit. So we're getting into the adductors and the inside of the thigh. And after you've had a moment to move through this posture a little bit, let's find a spot that feels like a good stopping point and breathe into it. Thinking about pressing that foot into the floor next to us. Nice. And we'll come back through center and then extend that left leg next to us. And then start the rocking process here, just moving through this plane of motion a little bit. Warming things up. And then as you find a nice stopping point, we'll settle there and breathe. Breathing into the inner thigh, anything that feels sticky. Nice. Okay. And from here, we'll just open our knees up, maybe as wide as the mat, if that feels comfortable. And then you can either leave your feet where they are or start to bring your toes together to touch. And from here, we'll gently sit our hips back for child's pose. Reach the arms forward. And think about bringing the forehead to or towards the floor. The forehead can also go on a block if that feels good. Another option is if the hips feel really far away from the heels behind us, we can use some props, a pillow or a blanket or a bolster to support our hips here. So just sort of playing around with what works for you and then settling in, connecting with that slow, deep breath. Nice. We'll walk the hands back in, lift the hips, remove any blocks or other props we've been using. And from here, let's step one foot back and then the other foot back, or stay on your knees and lower yourself down to your belly. Taking a moment to arrange ourselves, pressing the tops of the feet into the floor, planting hands just below the armpits, engaging the legs, and then as we're ready, we'll inhale and come up gently for baby cobra. And release. Take a breath. And then we'll come back to center, re-engage the legs, and then inhale back up to cobra. And release. From here, let's bring the forearms to the mat in front of us. The elbows can be beneath the shoulders, planting the hands firmly on the mat and opening the chest forward for Sphinx, keeping those legs active and reconnecting with the breath once again. Coming back to the body, to the breath with each posture. Giving ourselves the space to just be here. Be present for our practice. Nice. And we can release that. Let's tuck the toes beneath us and press up to our knees. And then from here, we'll lift the hips up toward the sky, pressing firmly into the hands for downward facing dog, letting the heels be heavy, maybe bending one knee and then the other. As you press the floor away from you, pressing down through all four corners of the hands, thinking about really reaching that tailbone up toward the sky, finding length in the spine and in the backs of the legs, really opening up through the entire back body here. Nice. And then as you're ready, we'll drop those knees to the mat. Open them nice and wide one more time for one last child's pose as we sit the hips back. Reach the arms forward. Breathing into the hips, to the low back, to any place that feels sticky. Nice. And we can release that child's pose. And then from here, we're going to move back onto our backs. So if you have a blanket or a towel on the mat, you might like to move that out of the way. And then making your way onto your back, however it feels good for you. And we'll again just take a moment to settle with the breath here. And then draw knees in towards the chest. Bringing feet down to the mat, planting them about hip width apart. Planting hands and arms on the mat next to the body. Engaging through the legs and rolling the hips up to the sky, one vertebra at a time for our bridge pose. Really engaging the glutes, the hamstrings here. And then rolling down one vertebra at a time. Again, reaching arms and legs long on the mat. And then coming into your final resting position, whether you like to be in a sort of traditional Shavasana pose, legs long, arms extended. Maybe you prefer sort of the constructive rest model, bringing your feet to the outside of the mat, letting the knees fall in. Whatever feels good for you, for your body. We'll do that here for just a moment as we pause and rest, allowing our bodies to really integrate all of the work you've done here today in your practice. Reconnecting with that breath, slowing it down, feeling the expansion of the chest and belly with each breath, and the contraction as you let it go. Feeling the weight of your body heavy on the mat. And now taking a nice deep breath in and letting it go. Reawakening through fingers and toes, blinking the eyes open. And then we will end our practice by turning to one side, finding a fetal position for just a second, feeling rested here. And then using the strength of our arms to sit up, taking one more nice deep breath in this seated posture. And from here, I'm wishing you a most wonderful end to your week. Take good care, friends. See you next time.